you pay much less to an Ola Uber driver than a traditional taxi that you have, because they're able to optimize on every leg of the travel, right? After you have left, very often while you are getting down from an Ola or Uber, they'll get the next order. You know, it has happened with me sometimes that you get the next order from the same. We were at Maurya, ITC Maurya in Delhi last week, and the moment we got down, उससे पहले उसका order उसी जगह से आ गया, and the other guy, the next customer, was opening the door for us to get down, and he gets in. Now this optimization was not possible unless, so you know, these are not examples of digital transformation. These are the transformations of organizations which owe their existence to digital technologies available. You know, they started. You know, so I think Starbucks is not, their online delivery is not as big a percentage of their business as the pizza, right, kind of thing. But still, you can have customized, you know, they have customer systems, you know, where they know that you go for a small size of a cappuccino or a medium size or a big size. Do you want sugar free, or you want 2 sachets of sugar, or 1 sachet of sugar, or 3 sachets of sugar, right? They have stored that, right? And they will deliver you based on what you have been having, right? Now Starbucks, you can even customize. Somebody will say, I'll have this cappuccino with a hazelnut, sprinkled over the top of it, right? So they will capture that, right? You know, and they have captured that every time you order that, you know, in fact, that online system will even ask you, would you like us to add? Because last sale you had that hazelnut powder sprinkled, right? Do you want that? You know, kind of a thing. So I think, you know, all these technologies, you know, these are nothing but examples of digital transformation of the business, right? Nike, as I said, if you want a 9.5 size, which is not available in the store, but you can order, and in a very reasonable 2-3 days time, it gets delivered to you, right? Imagine, how many of you remember when Ford, perhaps the first car company in the world, right? They said, the Henry Ford used to say, you can buy any car as long as it is black. Have you heard this? How many of you have heard this? You can buy any car in the world as long as it is black. When people wanted their color in the car, he said you can buy any car, which means we don't care to give you choices at all. You know, we give you one color which is black. If you like it, take it. You know, today imagine, this do-it-yourself car, the Chinese car. You can order any set of features. You can order any set of upholstery. You know, do you want, you know, your upholstery to have air conditioning ducts or not? You know, do you want 8 safety bags, or you need 5 safety bags? Everything you can customize, and the car with the same color. Do you want sunroof? Do you want, you know, anything that you want? You know, this combination. Typically, from the days when Henry Ford used to say you can buy any car as long as it is black, and one model or 2 models at best, fitting the requirements of every customer, to something that you can design and order online what kind of car you would like to have. Of course, that car can't come in 2-3 days time, it will take a month or whatever it is, right? But 1 महीना तो लग जाता है अलग अलग कार शोरूम्स में जाके स्कैनिंग करने में, right? उतनी देर में you custom make your car. It's also only possible because you leverage digital technologies big time, right? And the way their shop floors are organized, the way their inventory stores are organized, you know, it's there's no strain on them to do a car which is specific to your requirements, because the entire supply chain gets lined up based on this volatility of the customer requirement. So I think that's very important. So you know, DHL, if you look at, you know, which is a logistics company, right? Couriers and shipments and so on and so forth, right? Through just by introducing barcoding and a mirroring product that they have to read the barcodes and so on and so forth, they were able to optimize the time to shipment by about 25%. They were able to reduce time to shipment by 25%, right? No, so I think these are amazing things, you know, which are happening all over the world, and you have to be very, very, very mindful, you know. See, very often you have heard about Industry 4.0 technologies, right? And how many of you have heard about this Industry 4.0? You know, I'm sure everybody has heard, right? So what are these technologies? We all know artificial intelligence, we all know Internet of Things, which I just described. big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, machine learning, 3D printing, everywhere. So, digitalization of the whole product life cycle, it allows the data from production to service platforms and thereby leading the faster product improvements, equipment monitoring, preventive and predictive maintenance of the plant, advanced product analytics. Everything is possible today, right? I mean, which this seamless integration which has happened, right? It is also a cause for concern because a lot of jobs are getting lost, right? I'll give you an example of a company called Foxconn in China, where introduction of AI and robotics itself resulted in the loss of 60,000 jobs. One company, 60,000 jobs, which got lost because what people were doing, robots and AI-driven technologies were doing, right? There's a research firm in the US which has done some study about Indian IT industry, and they've said, Indian IT industry employs. I'll just give you the data somewhere. Today, the total employment the Indian IT industry has is of the order of about 60 lakh people are working in the Indian IT industry. 60 lakh, and anywhere between 30 to 50% of these jobs will go in next 2 to 3 years time. They've already started reducing. They'll go. These jobs will go because today, at the end of this year, the AI generated code is the software program, would have overtaken the manually generated code. Because the future की बात नहीं हो रही है. It has happened already, right? It would have overtaken this entire code. So the changes are happening everywhere, and out of these 60 lakh people which are working, 30 to 50% of them at the lower end of programming will lose their jobs, right? But the good thing is the medium skilled jobs which are will actually increase by 8%, and highly specialized jobs in software companies will increase by about 60%. Total net there will be a reduction because at the pyramid, bottom of the pyramid is where more and more people work, right? Not at the medium and top level, right? But there are new generation. I mean, old jobs are getting lost, but new jobs are getting created also. So I mean, for a challenge for a country like us is, are we prepared for it? That's a big thing, right? So a new generation of jobs which are getting generated are the Internet of Things, the product managers, robo coordinators, industrial programmers, network engineers, But how much of I sometimes a challenge, even IITs and Indian Institute of Science, older IITs and Indian Institute of Science, how much of their technology today is geared up for Industry 4.0 technologies? Very less. And the lesser colleges, God save those colleges, They are not able to redesign their courses, and even if they are able to redesign their courses, where do they get the faculty from? Where would the faculty also needs to undergo significant upgradation to be able to teach? Just by courses can be redesigned by some experts, right? But how will the delivery happen? I think that's a big challenge. Just to tell you that Internet of Things, people say, "अरे वो India के लिए बहुत दूर है." Let me tell you, $50 billion का market है current India में. सिर्फ IoT. मैं IoT based factories की बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. IoT devices का $50 billion का market है India में in the year 2026, the year we are living in, as the new technologies are used for monitoring equipment, process optimization, preventive and predictive maintenance of machines, and advanced analytics of products. The big data market today is of the order of about $20 billion in the country. It's a huge challenge, and newer jobs are increasing. For example, of data engineer, machine learning scientist, business analytic specialist, BI, the intelligence solution architects, statisticians, scientists, data scientists. These are new jobs which are getting created. 3D printing, the most complex of the aircraft products or components, or auto components, or any thing can be generated. You give some commands to the machine and 3D printer and they'll start. I mean, how many of you have seen a 3D printer working? Some of you have, right? The entire component is not made in the factory. On the 3D printer, it is done, right? Today, 70% of all Indian manufacturing companies are using 3D printing. I'm not saying 3D printing is being used for large scale requirements, right? But for prototypes, for research and development, those are using those technologies to generate newer components, right? Typically, research and development, if you change the design of a component, it used to go through a long cycle before the component could see the light of the day. All that is changing very fast with the 3D printing, right? So I think the new jobs that AI and robotics will create are of AI research scientists, language processing specialists, robo process automation developers, man-machine teaming machines, and so on and so forth. There are huge opportunities everywhere. Old jobs are reducing, surely getting lost, but newer, lot of analytic and productive predictive skills are important. Networking skills, people will always remain in demand, even though the shift from to the cloud has happened. But networking requirement will be people who have knowledge of wide area networks and so on and so forth. Edge computing, fog computing, the 5G networking technologies, they will always remain in fact, there will be more demand going forward than what has been in the past. The core coding skills will always be important, despite AI architects IT architects will be very important. Cyber security is, you have a separate session for that. I don't want to touch on that. But today data is the most valuable asset the company has, right? It is the most undervalued asset, right? The most undervalued asset, right? And no matter how smart are your software developers and having stuff which ensures that there's safe protocols used and so on and so forth. But the people who induce bugs into your system or infiltrate into a system, they are smarter people than the developers. It's always a fight. It's not easy at all, right? So let me shift the focus now a bit on Internet of Things. I have covered with some detail, kind of detail which was possible in the limited time that we have today. But on, as I told you that Industry 4.0 technologies largely are Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, nanotechnology, machine learning, 3D printing. A quick flavor of each of them I gave you today. And so I think the global AI market, I'll also touch upon briefly as to how artificial intelligence deployment will change academics to a limited extent that we have time for. The global AI market is about $200 billion worth of global AI market today, right? By 2030, how much it will become? 1,000 billion. 200 billion to 1,000 billion. Five-fold increase in next 3-4 years time, kind of a thing. It's happening CAGR of growth rate of 28 to 30% per annum. That's a kind of rate at which even today AI market in India is also worth about $5 billion. It's not all that small. And Indian AI market is growing at a faster pace than the global. Not because we are great guys in AI, but the base is so small. Our base is so small, so it's growing at about 33% CAGR. So AI-led automation will replace 80 million jobs, human-led jobs. It has already replaced 80 million jobs, and it will replace 100 million new jobs by 2028. But the good news is a lot of new generation of jobs are also getting created. But our universities and colleges and even IITs and IIMs, they are not ready for it. That is what my biggest lament is. So I think today, about 105 crore people use AI tools all over the world. 105 crore people. What will this number be by 2030? 300 crore. 300 crore, which means more than the population of China and India, the two most populous countries. There are a number of people who use AI. How many of you use AI here? Raise your hand. But you know, AI usage is not using ChatGPT itself. It's far deeper, right? You know, it's far more involved, right? So you know, there's a good and bad story for India, because Indian IT industry is worth about $300 billion today, right? And 80% of that is IT and ITS, software services and information technology enabled services exports that happens outside of the country. And you know, today, you know,